Hello and welcome to the first of four lectures that will go through the Civil War in sort of chronological order. So not by themes, but by the order of events that go through. And we'll begin each year not in January, but sort of March, April when spring's arriving, because wars tend to go in that kind of a year. And so we'll start with Lincoln taking the oath of office and becoming president in March of 1861. And since he was elected back in November of 1860, now March 1861, many of the southern states have formally left. But there is no war as yet, and it's not clear if there will be a war and what's going to happen as we move forward. Now, in Lincoln's inauguration address, he's going to be very conciliatory, not trying to provoke, not instead trying to sort of offer the possibility of reunion, which is his main goal. And so he reminds that he's opposed to the expansion of slavery into the territories, but he has no inclination at all to end slavery where it already exists, and he makes clear that he doesn't have the power, the authority to do so. He couldn't do that even if he wanted to. And Lincoln will actually return more fugitive slaves back to the South than President Buchanan did before him in the first 3 months after taking office. So he's trying to appease those border states, and he's trying to, show that he's willing to enforce the law, like the Fugitive Slave Act, even though he would, of course, he's strongly opposed to it. And he wants to not be the one to initiate the war, which leads to the dilemma that he has at the beginning of Fort Sumter. Now, Fort Sumter is an island fort. It's in the South. It's in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina, protecting the entrance to the harbor. And the soldiers there are Federal soldiers, Union soldiers, Northern soldiers, sort of trapped in this fort down in the South. And they are running out of supplies, food, and other necessities. And so it's a dilemma for Lincoln to either give it up and let them be taken as prisoners in some capacity, which would show him to be weak, or he can send in soldiers to rescue them out, which would be provoking, and it would be him initiating this war. So he comes up with a solution, which is to sort of make the decision now up to the Southern president, Jefferson Davis, by saying, I'm not going to send soldiers, but I am going to send supplies. And when he does so, the fighting breaks out, and initiated by the South. And so we've got our first shots fired, and now, okay, there is going to be a war, but nobody knows going forward, is this going to be a short war, a long war? What kind of a war is this going to be? And the reaction from it is for the other, some of the border states to also join in secession. So North Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, Virginia make the decision to join with the South. Now, Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia is going to break away from Virginia and form a new state during this time, and Maryland and Delaware, they will remain in the Union. And a lot of Lincoln's actions and the things that he will do are to, at times, to appease these ones and not sort of force them out. And he's got to deal with, in these ones, sometimes with dissent and keeping them in the Union through force. And one area where we see that is in Baltimore, which is just north of Washington, D.C. And the people there, many of them are in favor of the Confederacy on the southern side, and would like Maryland to join the Confederacy. And they're causing a lot of problems for Lincoln. They're not letting trains travel through Baltimore. Like, they're attacking soldiers who are on their way down to Washington. They're being prevented from going through. And there's a lot of dissent sort of from the governor, from the mayor, from others in power in Maryland, and threatening to break away. So soldiers are sent into the city, and the city is put under martial law. And so the Constitution is essentially suspended in Maryland during this time. Thousands of people are arrested, no trial, no charge, just you're under arrest, you're going into prison. And they're sent into Fort McHenry, which is the famous fort that inspired the Star-Spangled Banner, the song, "Oh, say, can you see?" Sorry to make you hear me sing, but it's that event in the War of 1812 that inspired this song. And that's the fort that they're imprisoned in. Now, the next day, the newspaper editor, Frank Key Howard, he was also arrested for criticizing that they'd arrested the police and the mayor and the governor and all the rest, and he's thrown into Fort McHenry, which is kind of ironic because Frank Key Howard, his grandfather was Francis Scott Key, who had written the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, Chief Justice Taney argued that these arrests are unconstitutional, which they are. They are unconstitutional, and Lincoln just ignored him, which I think is maybe sweet justice for Taney, who was the Dred Scott decision maker as well. And these kinds of actions will happen in other places within the United States, where journalists and others could be thrown into prison without trial. They suspended that sort of aspect of the Constitution during the war. So Judge Lincoln on the merits, is he's breaking the Constitution in order to save it, and that's the way he's going to argue why what he's doing is what he's doing. All right, it's at this time. Okay, war's on. They established the blockade, and the blockade for the most part will be quite effective. Britain will honor it. And that was sort of a worry. Will Britain try to break the blockade? And there's a lot of coastline. They've organized into different areas, and there will be fighting in the ocean, but that's an aspect of the war that we really won't spend much time on. And we're going to get our first battle. And we know that the goal for the North, their strategy, one of them is to capture Richmond, the capital of Virginia. And you can see both capitals are quite close to each other here. As we zoomed into the border between Maryland and Virginia with Washington, D.C., right on the middle of them. Washington, D.C., by the way, is very heavily defended, and there will never be an attack on Washington, D.C. itself. So we get our first battle. Soldiers are sent out. They were sort of reluctant to go out there. The army is just saying, we're not ready, and we're green, we're untrained. And Lincoln would respond, well, so are they. And you've got your force. Go out, maybe see if you can capture Richmond. And the two armies meet at a place called Manassas, or the First Bull Run. Sorry, a lot of the battles will have two names, and it doesn't matter which one you go through. Okay, so they meet, and at first it's a bit of a tie, but then a large group of Southern soldiers, reinforcements arrive, and the Union or Northern soldiers panic and have a hasty retreat, running back to Washington with their tail between their legs. And Lincoln issues a call for more soldiers, places this guy McClellan in charge of the Army of the Potomac, and gets it all organized. And it's sort of a realization this isn't going to be a quick war. It's not going to be over after the first year. We're not just going to capture Richmond and the South will have a quick surrender. That's not going to happen. But that's what they're sort of hoping might happen here. Now, McClellan, what kind of a person is he? Well, he's a smart guy. He's put in charge of this army, the Army of the Potomac, which is the Eastern Army. This is the army that's going to be doing all the fighting for the North in this area in Virginia and Maryland. And for McClellan, he's smart. He's a career officer. He's organized. He's very good at organizing the army. He's very good at instilling discipline into the army. They're trained very well. They love him. He's got very good morale. But maybe one reason they really liked him is because he was very reluctant to send them off into battle. And this frustrated Lincoln, who called him Tardy George, or he's got the slows, as Lincoln would put it. And there will be no more attempts in this first year at capturing Richmond. But where we do have some success in this first year is in the West. We'll get to that in a moment. Another thing that happened in this first year is we get Britain almost joining in and recognizing the South, which would be an absolute disaster, where two Southern diplomats were on their way to England and they were traveling on an English mail ship, and the Northern Navy knew that they were on the ship and they had the ship stopped and they boarded it and arrested the two. And for Britain, this is a complete affront to their sovereignty, and to them it's a serious insult. And they demand the release of the two gentlemen, two Southern diplomats, and a formal apology, to which Lincoln sort of recognizes, yeah, this is S. Grant, who'd bit of a failure in life, Ulysses, and had begged and pleaded for a return to a military position. He was a former military guy, and because they were in the need of officers, he was sort of put in charge of one group out in the West, and he's going to demonstrate again and again that he can win. And Lincoln's going to sort of really take notice of him. So this is really up in the upper Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. So you can see them right there, Fort Henry and Donelson. And what these mean for the Union is that there's a bit of a morale boost after that whole embarrassment of the first Bull Run and the Trent Affair. And they're gaining control of the upper Mississippi and firm control over Kentucky, which is one of the border states. Now they don't have to worry about Kentucky leaving because they're sort of occupied at this point. And Grant, as I said, he's catching Lincoln's eye. All right, so that's going to stop us right there because this was happening late in the first year. This is February of '62. So the snows are going to melt, spring's going to come, and we're going to get into our second year of the war. So where are we at the end of the first year? Well, it's realizing, okay, it's not going to be a quick war, that in the east, capturing Richmond is going to be maybe harder than thought, but that's going to be, continue with that goal. And in the west, having some initial success. Okay, thank you very much for